was a disease.
I had lost my job, my father had died, and I was just getting more depressed, and everything seemed to be going downhill, and I just didn't want to live.
Inside Evie's brain, scientists believe a chemical imbalance changes how a depressed person thinks. Our brain cells communicate with each other through electrical impulses. These impulses are messages sent from one cell to another. Normally, the impulse is carried across a small gap called the synapse by a chemical messenger called a neurotransmitter. For unknown reasons, people who are depressed have diminished amounts of the neurotransmitter serotonin. This shortage means critical mood-controlling messages fail to get communicated. In short, the message is sent but never received. Scientists believe this is the biochemical basis of depression. Evie's desperation led to a suicide attempt. She was hospitalized and began to receive treatment. Antidepressant medications were prescribed. Evie spent the next several years trying different medications until 1987, when a drug called Prozac became available. Prozac belongs to a group of antidepressants called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs for short. SSRIs work on the brain by improving the performance of the neurotransmitters. They increase the amount of serotonin by slowing how quickly it returns to the sending neuron. More serotonin means a greater chance the message will pass successfully from one brain cell to another. Prozac changed Evie's life dramatically. She discovered something she'd never known: life without depression.
I started feeling things differently. I mean, I noticed colors more. I started enjoying things a little. I went to visit a friend in South Carolina for the weekend, and I had the best vacation I ever had. Just feeling positive about everything. It would feel good to get up and look outside, and if it was a sunny day, say, gee, it feels good to be alive.
Medication has become the first line of treatment for depression. A 1997 pharmaceutical marketing study found 3 of the top 10 best-selling drugs nationwide were antidepressants. At the same time, some critics claim drugs for depression are overprescribed.
Hi.
I wanted to find out more, so I visited Sophie McIntyre, a neighborhood pharmacist.
There are several medications used to treat depression. Currently, most of the people who have depression are treated with an SSRI, such as there's medications like Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac are the big names.
Okay, listen. There are several different types of SSRIs. Each one affects the neurotransmitters slightly differently, but all of them have side effects, including agitation, constipation, sexual dysfunction, and stomach aches.
The main side effects that people complain about initially can be GI upset. They can have constipation or diarrhea. Some people can feel a little bit tired when they take medications. Those patients are generally advised to take them in the evening hours, whereas if the medication makes them a bit agitated or more alert, we'd recommend that they take it in the morning, because it is possible for one patient to feel drowsy from one of the medications, and then the next patient to maybe feel a little bit agitated from it.
SSRIs like Prozac and Zoloft are not happy pills. They don't make you euphoric. They restore your emotional equilibrium by repairing the chemical imbalance in your brain.
So once I get my prescription, I just pop one of the pills and I'm going to instantly feel better?
No, unfortunately not. Depression takes a while to be treated. Most of the medications take about 4 to 6 weeks before it kicks into your system.
4 to 6 weeks?
Absolutely.
Do a lot of people give up? I think I would probably give up if I didn't feel better, at least after 2 weeks. That just sounds like a lot of medication.
It is. In fact, I can show you a comparison of how many pills somebody would take for an ear infection compared to how many pills somebody might need for treating depression. I have 3 different examples here for you.
Okay.
This first one is a medication that women will generally use for menstrual cramps, or if people have headaches, for example. One pill might take away their pain.
I take that pill. It does work. It works very quickly.
This medication here is used for either ear infections or strep throat, some type of infection.
So that's like an antibiotic.
Exactly. 6 pills here make the infection go away.
Knocks it out.
Patient who has depression probably take 1 or 2 of those a day for 4 to 6 weeks before they even feel any effect.
That's a lot of pills, and that's a long time.
It is.
So I guess it really is important for people not to give up.
Very important.
Do you remember the first time you thought to yourself, I'm depressed? Chances are you were in high school.
If you're sad, then nobody wants to be around you.
You can just completely change who you are. She just denies it every time someone asks her.
Life as an adolescent can be overwhelming.
You're just not aware of what they're going through.
Roughly 500,000 teenagers will attempt suicide this year. Almost 5,000 will succeed.
When you're depressed, nobody and nothing is going to make you that much happier.
30 years ago, depression was considered an adult illness. Today, we realize depression affects nearly 5% of the adolescent population.
What I see as a physician a lot of the time, though, is young people who aren't very communicative with friends, aren't necessarily have a great time at school, aren't necessarily have a great time at home. And then when you start to talk to them about their feelings, it becomes pretty evident that they're becoming very isolated.
Many teens are reluctant to share their feelings. Their silence can contribute to the problem.
You've got to sort of try to get a sense of where they're at, and I think that's difficult because sort of the classic response from a teenager is fine, or, you know, the one-word response.
If you're the parent of a teenager, what are the warning signs? Is it easy to tell the difference between normal teenage moodiness and something that might need treatment?
If you're seeing real shifts in the person's behavior, you know, for example, if the young person always does something that seems to make them happy and somehow now that's not in their life. Playing a computer game, or that could be talking to a certain friend, or that could be playing a sport, and all of a sudden they're not involved with that. Certainly there is chronic depression in young people.
Other symptoms include violent behavior, changes in sleeping patterns, a drop in academic performance, or withdrawal from friends. Brian Reuter is a teenager who struggles with depression.
I didn't want to let my parents down by letting them know I was unhappy. So up until I first became depressed, I hid from them any kind of unhappiness. I told them I was doing great, everything was fine.
When Brian began his junior year, he was a model student athlete.
I'd come back to school in the fall, played football, and it had really gotten me back into school again. And whenever that ended, it was just like everything, you know, my whole sort of structure was gone from my life.
After a breakup with his girlfriend, Brian began to feel and act differently.
What I felt was different than just feeling, you know, unhappy that, you know, I had broken up. It was more of a, you know, just not being able to function anymore.
Brian maintained good grades, but his parents noticed he was losing interest in friends and sports.
School had been so stressful, and, you know, I had been having so many troubles with relationships that year that I just wanted to take a break from it.
Brian needed help. A family doctor prescribed antidepressant medication.
I was very much against it. I didn't think it would help at all. I didn't want some drug altering my mind. It was really what it was. I wanted to get through things on my own. I didn't want to become dependent on a drug. There were a lot of reasons.
Drugs like Prozac and Zoloft and other SSRIs only work for about 65% of the people who use them. They didn't help Brian. In fact, they may have contributed to his erratic behavior at school, including a loud outburst in the school cafeteria.
I went to my school's health center and, you know, asked if I could leave, and they said, sure. They said they thought it was a good idea. So I decided to leave for about a week. What was different was they decided after a week that they didn't want me to come back for the rest of the year. They thought it was safer if I stayed out so I didn't come back and have trouble again.
Brian's family turned to the talking cure, a form of treatment called psychotherapy. But Brian had some resistance.
I felt like I should be dealing with it on my own. I didn't want people to know that I was, you know, seeing somebody for everything. I didn't want some adult knowing everything about my life.
Like many people, Brian had the wrong impression about what therapy really is.
I sort of pictured it, you know, the way a lot of people do, lying on a couch and just telling everything about my childhood and somebody saying, okay, this is what you have, this is what you have to do.
There are many different kinds of psychotherapy.